Hi, this is Graham. Hope everyone's having a great day. A couple of months ago I produced a video in which I did what's called a focus pull, and since then I've had several requests to demonstrate how I did that again. So I've set up my FZ200 here in the conservatory as the weather outside has been atrocious for the last couple of days. So I'm going to try and show you how I did that focus pull using the FZ200 and a couple of facilities the camera has which makes it a bit easier. Traditionally with a DSLR you have a manual focus ring and can actually rack between two focus points. With the FZ200 it's fly-by-wire, so we don't have that fine-tuned control. I've come up with two fixes for that. One is to use the closest focus distance, and that is either 1 meter in the AF macro mode or 2 meters in traditional autofocus mode, and I use that as my first stop point. So if I'm outside, for example, taking a flower and I want to rack between infinity and the flower, I will set the flower up at the 1 meter mark. And to do that I will use a tape rule to set the tripod up initially, and you measure from the front surface of the lens barrel to your subject, and that will be 39 inches, and that gives you the good starting point for the initial focus point. You can then fine tune that by switching the camera to manual focus and then just physically moving the tripod backwards and forwards, looking at the image on the screen until you get the sharpest focus, and that should be the 1 meter mark. If you're using the autofocus and not the autofocus macro mode, then again you would set that to 2 meters to your subject, and again just rack the camera backwards and forwards until you get that first set point. The other focus point, I'll use the autofocus facility this camera has when you're in the manual mode. So when you press the focus button on the side, it will attempt to do an autofocus mode. We preset that autofocus mode, and I'll show you how to do that in the video in a moment, so that it's on your second stop point. Once you've got the second stop point set, and you've got the manual focus set at the 1 meter, you can rack between the two in the video mode, and I'll show you that in the video as we proceed. It is a fairly laborious procedure, but for some shots it does work quite well. The nearer you can get the subject to the camera and the further the subject is from the background, obviously you'll get a better out of focus effect. Here in the conservatory I'm using 1 meter to the subject and around about 2.5 meters to my second stop point. But the out of focus effect at f2.8 is quite good, and I'm using almost a 600mm zoom to give me that shallowest depth of field. So let's get on. I'll show you how to set some of the functions up in the camera to make this process a little bit easier, and then I'll demonstrate with the camera how I produce this effect. It's worth noting that because you are going to be using the side lever on the side of the camera, it's worth making sure your camera is on a sturdy tripod. If it's not, when you try and depress the side lever, you'll get a slight movement of the camera, and that might just spoil the effect. I can't imagine you trying to use this handheld, although I have done this on one occasion by resting the camera against the ground and again just operating the manual lever. But it's best to do this on a tripod so everything is controlled. To allow you to use this method more efficiently, it's probably better using the facility to program the function 3 button to give you access to the side lever. And the side lever can be programmed for either zoom or focus. So to program the function 3 button for that facility, we need to go into the menu and go across to the tool setup and go through to the point where we can define the function button setup. So it's down to function button set, then cursor across to the right, and it's the function button 3 that we want to assign. So when you press menu set, it gives you the option then to go through and select the function that you want to assign to that function 3 button. And in this case it's going to be the side lever function. So when we come back through to the main menu, when I depress the function 3 button, it now gives me access to the side lever, and I can change the operation from focus to zoom or zoom to focus. For this particular operation we want the side lever to be the focus mode. You'll notice that we're in the manual movie mode, and I'm also using manual focus. And of course we select manual focus by depressing the side lever on the side of the barrel to select manual focus. For this method to work efficiently, we need to be using a small aperture and ideally at a large telephoto range. This means that we have the shallowest depth of field, and here we can see on the screen at the moment we've got a very shallow depth of field on this little model, and the background's nicely out of focus. I'm exactly 1 meter away from the subject, and that's the closest working distance in the autofocus macro mode. This method relies on going between two set points. The first one is going to be the closest focus distance, and here I've got the AF macro set, so that's 1 meter. If it wasn't using AF macro, then it would be the 2 meter setting. But at the moment I've got the camera set up so the focus from the lens barrel to the subject is exactly 1 meter, and you can confirm that by just rocking the camera backwards and forwards until you've got the point of focus exactly where you want it on this model. To set up the second point, we're going to use the facility of the autofocus zoom facility. Now, to set this, we need to be able to place this focus square on the subject that we want the camera to resolve. To do that, we need to switch the side switch back over temporarily to the autofocus position. So if I select autofocus macro, and now when I press the focus button on the side of the camera, it gives me access to be able to position the focus point and its size exactly where I want. So I want the camera to be able to track to this flower in the background. If I want to change the size, then I use the top control wheel, but I want this to be the smallest size possible. So I'm going to set the focus point to be on the flower. Press menu set to lock it in position, and now we can change the focus back to manual by sliding the slide switch. And now if I press the focus switch on the side of the camera will automatically focus on that point. So you can see now the camera's gone to that position and locked in focus. To get the focus pull effect now, we use the side lever, and we can either depress it fully to get the full speed zoom or slightly depress it to get the slow speed zoom. If I depress it fully, the camera will now drive back to the closest focus distance, which we've manually set the focus to. And if I move the switch slightly up, you'll see the first speed of zoom. You can see that it's now tracking out towards the infinity mark at a fairly slow speed. So we're now passing the 2 meter mark, and we will go on into infinity. Ideally, if you're doing this focus pull outside, you want to be selecting the closest distance of 1 meter and a subject which is further away of infinity. So that will give you a nice out of focus effect. If I just depress the focus button, it'll take us to that 2 meter point where I've got the flower set up. If I depress the button down slightly now towards the wide angle setting, the camera will start to track towards the 1 meter end, and can see it's moving slowly, but if I push the button all the way to the bottom, it speeds up that zoom process, so you can vary the speed of your ramping for your focus points. That scale doesn't appear when you're in the video mode, it only appears while you're presetting your mode. So if I switch into the recording mode, and I now depress the focus button, it should take us to the 2 meter mark, which will focus on these flowers at the background. And now I'm going to use the side lever, and I'm going to depress it all the way to the bottom, and it'll follow focus now to the front subject. And again, if I depress the focus button, it will take us slowly back to the set point. Hope that helps, and I hope you think that that's worthwhile trying to produce that in your own videos. But don't overdo it. Again, these effects are reserved for those occasions where this particular video mode gives you that little extra edge in your video production. It's Graham saying thanks very much for watching. Until my next video, bye for now and take care.